Hello guys, in this tutorial we are trying to write tests for update balance. We actually have a class. The class name is finance service. We actually use this class to call the update balance method. In this update balance method, we actually call another method naming it as a send request. So in send request, we are sending a request using the guzzle to some third-party APIs to update the balance. So we have a user, but the user balance is in another service, is in another place, which I don't know where is it. I'm just sending a request to it to update the balance of that user. So as you can see, the update balance will call the send request, and the send request call the guzzle. But as you know, we cannot really send any requests to any third-party APIs in our test. So what should we do for this? We can mark the finance service, but if we mark the my finance service, then we will mark all of the methods. But we have a solution for this. PHPUnit has a solution for it, and we can use partial marking. So what is partial marking? Partial marking saying that if you want to mark part of your class, you can use the partial marking. But how this partial marking works? Okay, so let's create our first test class. I will call it finance test. Let me zoom in, extend the test case, and here I will run the scenario. So the first scenario is to call the update balance, the method that we are actually calling to update the user balance. So update balance should call send request and process response with a specific arguments. This is the first scenario. Arguments. The second scenario is that update balance should return the user object with newly updated balance. Now let's start with the first scenario. So say public function test update balance should call send request and process response with specific arguments. Okay, now let's write our test. So to write our test, we need to mock the finance service. So we say mock finance service class, and if we go to the finance service, you can see in the constructor we are accepting two variables. So, and both of them are using the type hints. The first one is the Gaza client, the second one is the user model. So we also need to pass them to the mockery. So we say new client, Gaza client, and new user. Okay, cool. And after mocking, we need to call a method, which the name of the method is make partial. So this is mean that I want to mock part of the class. So we say mock finance service. Okay, now we have the mock finance service. Let me just a little bit, yeah. Now we need to basically write some expectation. So I'm expecting to call this method send request with what? With this arguments. Let me go to the other limit. With this arguments. So I will call it with this. The balance, let's specify a balance here so we can use it everywhere. I will say the balance will be 1,000 cents. Okay, balance once, it should get called once, and return self. So what does it mean, return self? Return self means return the object itself, return this mock object itself. And in the class, in the finance service class, you can see the send request is returning itself, is returning these objects. So after that, we can call the process response, and we should do the same thing in here. The second expectation that we need to write is basically the process response. So in the process response, we actually want to call the process response with any argument, so with any args once, and return for me an array, and return an array, because we are expecting an array from this response. As you can see, we are returning, yes, we are expecting the balance. So balance, let's say the process response will return for me the same balance that I'm sending to it. In this case, the process response acting as that third-party API. And so the balance is balance. Now I would like to run the test, but before running it, I need to call the method. The method is update limit, I think. No, not update limit, update balance, sorry. So update balance. If I run the test now, okay. Sorry, I need to pass the balance to this update balance. Okay, no assertion, and the reason is because of the tear down. So we need to basically define the expectation here. Macri get container, yes, add get expectation count, macri close. Okay, so if we run the test again, as you can see, we have one test and two assertions. Okay, cool. So we marked send request, we mark the process response, and we return the expectation, and we call update balance, and we actually just get, we get this test pass. So now we want to write one more test exactly as the same, but in this test we want to basically return something, return the user object with the updated balance. So test update balance should return updated user object. So now if I define a response here, and if I assert JSON, so I'm expecting to have a balance and comparing to this response, and I should get the content from it. Why? Because in the final service I'm returning JSON response, so when I'm saying get content, it will return for me a JSON string. So if I run the test again, it is array, we need to encode this using JSON encode. And now we have two tests, 5 assertions. Okay, cool. And now, as you can see, we have two tests. We have wrote two tests. The first test is for actually defining the expectation that we are expecting our test to return for us, and the second test is actually for returning the balance of that user from the user object. So the purpose of this tutorial was to explaining how we can use the partial marking and when we can use it, and how we can implement it in our test. I hope you like this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.